Good afternoon. On behalf of the Hibbing Area Chamber of Commerce, it's my pleasure to thank our two candidates, Julie Sandstead and Spencer Igo, for being with us this afternoon for this forum that is being broadcast through the wonderful folks at Hibbing Public Access Television, and we appreciate their efforts today. And I do want to just say a special shout out to Shelley Hansen, the director of the Hibbing, are you president of the Hibbing Area Chamber of Commerce, for her effort in organizing this forum. I'm Pastor Dan Erickson. Steve Potts and I will be asking the questions which Julie and Spencer will answer today. Let me quickly go over the rules that we're going to be following for the forum as far as we start with opening statements by each candidate, and you will each have 2 minutes for that. And then when the questions are asked, you'll have 90 seconds to answer the question. And then following each of your answers, then you will have 30 seconds, each of you will have 30 seconds for rebuttal or additional time if you just want to continue to answer or talk about whatever you want to talk about. When we get to the closing times, those will be actually have up to 3 minutes to give your closing statements. So keep that in mind. And again, just reminders to the audience that you're basically here just to watch, and we encourage really long that at the end we can express our appreciation to everyone. Any questions before we get started? Yes. Okay, opening statements. Julie, why don't you go first? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I am State Representative Julie Sandstead, current representative out of District 6A. I want to start by thanking the Chamber for hosting this forum, and a special shout out to Hibbing Public Access for live streaming it. You've done great work for our community for such a long time, and this is a great opportunity for people who cannot come in personally. So thank you for that. I believe in government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And I believe that we do best when it's ordinary people that are serving. I feel very strongly called to public service. 6 years ago, when I ran for the position originally, I got in because we had great representation. And there was an opening, and I was concerned about who would be the next person and what would they do. And I had a voice to bring to the conversation, didn't know if I would win or not. Since I've been there, I've realized that government really works for people in big ways and small ways, and it is important that we continue to do this work. I'm a lifelong Iron Ranger, a lifelong Hibbing native. This is where I was born and raised and where I'm raising my family. I'm a wife, a parent, a grandparent, a public school teacher, a volunteer firefighter, and I know the challenges that we face in this region. I am deeply rooted in this community, and I think that we need a strong voice in St. Paul to bring the Iron Range there and bring our values down there and make sure that we are not drowned out by either political parties or metro politics. So I am running again to continue that fight.
Okay, thank you. Spencer, your opening statement.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Spencer Igo. I'm the current state representative for House District 5B. I am a lifelong resident of Itasca County, so I grew up most of my life either in Grand Rapids or in a small town called Taconite, and I take a lot of pride in that. It's made me the man I am today as growing up in northern Minnesota and on the range. I was first elected in 2020 and have been serving in St. Paul on 2 committees that I think are very important to the range. That's the House Environment Committee and House Energy Committee. I think it's a nice 1-2 punch for our region. The reason I really ran for office is, and I've already kind of said, is I ran for office to really bring about our best days to reality so that we can all rise up together on the range. I want to raise my future family here. The biggest blessing in my life was being raised up here. And I want to continue that tradition that we have of this rich history. My background, I have a degree in public administration from the University of North Dakota. At a very young age, I always had a calling to want to grow and make communities stronger and better. When it came time to me to run for the first time in 20, I'll be honest, it was something that I had never really considered. I never saw myself in the position, but when you have members of the community come to you and say, Spencer, we want you to be our voice. There's something that was activated inside me, a passion, a fire, if you will. And that's why I'm running for re-election now, because the work is not done yet. And the voices of the people on the range still need that representation, that rich representation we've always had. So that's why I'm here today. The conversations I've been having across the district these past months have just lit me on fire even more for the things that people want to see done. The playbook that they are writing for me to carry to St. Paul, the legislation that they want done is what's driving me to do all this. So I can't thank everyone enough for being here. I'm looking forward to today's debate.
Okay, thank you very much. It's kind of interesting. We have the current representative for 6A and the current representative for 5B running for being the House representative for District 7A. Unless you understand redistricting, you wouldn't know how in the world did that happen. It might be good just to start, what is District 7A? Where is District 7A? I'll do it by giving each of you, name 3 communities that are in your district. Julie, we'll let you go first.
My hometown, Hibbing.
Hibbing.
It goes as far west as Deer River,
Deer
and then
River.
south to McGregor.
And then you have all the range communities in between, Nashua, Keewatin, Coleraine, Bovey, Taconite.
That's 5.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
good.
yeah.
Well, we
So-
did the triangle, so I thought I should get all other communities in there.
Okay. So basically, McGregor, Deer River, Hibbing. And Chisholm is not part of your district.
Not any longer.
I know that, yeah. All right, question number 1. We'll start with Spencer on this one. The state currently has a $9.25 billion surplus. My notes say that. Would you support using any of this for tax relief? What should the surplus be used to fund?
Right, so the surplus should 100% be given back in a way to give Minnesotans a hand up. Obviously, no excuse, Minnesotans were overtaxed. Look at around state or countrywide, Minnesota is the 48th worst state in the nation to do business, and we're one of the top 10 most taxed. This is evident by the surplus. The way that I would look about policy to do this is it going to give a hand up or a handout? So some of the conversations where we're going to do a one-time check to give money back to people. And now that's great, but look at the rates of inflation. Those dollars are going to last 1 month, and you're going to see tax increases at the end of the year from those funds. So how can we find ways to create lasting, meaningful tax cuts? And that's what I've been supporting these past 2 years, and that's what I was supporting in the final tax bill. You know, finding ways that we could help with the homestead tax credit, things that Rangers and Minnesotans all across our state are seeing right now. Those are some of the things we need to find and go into and really implement change in, because we are at a time where Minnesotans need more money in their pocket right now to live their lives, to afford groceries, to afford rising heating costs that we're seeing right now as we all start ordering our fuel. So those are some of the ways we need to find ways to give money back, and the surplus needs to be returned to Minnesotans.
Thank you, Spencer. Julie, the same question to you concerning the $9.25 billion surplus. Would you support using any of this for tax relief, and what should the surplus be used on?
Absolutely, I would use it for tax relief. I want to set the record straight that the surplus is not just due to overtaxation, but much of the surplus that we have is a result of federal dollars that flowed into the economy as a result of the pandemic funding, if you will, from the federal government. We saw huge increases in businesses, and the economy was actually flourishing then, and that generated the surplus. As far as having a surplus and how we use it, we do need tax relief. That's why I was one of the chief authors on eliminating taxes on Social Security, improving the LGA formula, getting a county program aid increase. Those are all important things. When we talk about taxes, it's very important that we realize there's a lot of work in the state of Minnesota to do, and under the Constitution, our construct requires the use of tax dollars. Roads and bridges is one example. With that surplus, I think we need to do better for our seniors. We need to do better in funding our schools, in our students. We need to make sure our LGA formulas for communities that are disproportionately impacted are leveled, and our county program aid as well. Any reasonable tax credit or any reasonable tax benefit I would be supportive of. We have to lower property taxes. That's a great place to start.
Okay, thank you. Spencer, you have 30 additional seconds to respond.
You know, just to kind of go off there, you know, Social Security, ending the tax on that is something we should have completed before session collapsed. I mean, it should have been a standalone bill. Believe it or not, that was one of the first bills, I believe it was in 2 weeks of being in the legislature in January of 21 that I signed, like number 5 on that bill. It's an issue I hear every day at the door. So that's something we need to get done when we return January next year, regardless of who's down there. And again, find a way to deliver money back to Minnesotans and make lasting tax relief, not one-time tax relief.
30 seconds.
Yeah, I think that bill may have come up early, but at the end of the day, it was Senate Republicans that walked away, and we had no tax bill that benefited nobody.
Okay. Julie, this question starts with you. Our second question: attracting people to work in child and elder care is a challenge. What could the legislature do to encourage employment in these jobs?
Great question. All of the things that are impacting this are so interconnected, and we're going to talk about, I'm sure, some of those questions later. We need to attract and retain workers in these fields by, first of all, recognizing the type of work they're doing, the impact it has on the individual. We need to pay them a living wage. They need benefits. These can't be minimum wage jobs anymore without benefits. We're not going to be able to attract workers. When you can go to McDonald's and flip burgers for $20, they're not going to go take care of the elderly for less than that. We need to make sure that they have work-life balance. The type of work with our young children and our elder is critical. And when you are burnt out as a human being and you don't have enough staffing, and there is workforce shortages in these areas, when you're tired, it's a trauma to the worker themselves, and it takes a toll on their mental health. We need to make sure that we are offering incentives for people to go into these lines of work. We need, again, to pay them the correct wages, living wages, competitive wages, and offer them benefits, and actually respect the profession. I mean, we need to acknowledge the work that they're doing as being important and not just some frivolous minimum wage job.
Thanks, Julie. Spencer, same question to you. Attracting people to the work in child and elder care is a challenge. What could the legislature do to encourage employment in these jobs?
Well, yeah, so I think one of the first things we need to do, and was kind of talked about in my answer to my last question, is we have too much red tape and regulation. You know, the days of the mom and pop daycare who took the kids down the street for a few hours a week and, you know, mom and dad gave her a couple $100s are gone. You can't have a family daycare anymore without having stainless steel countertops and a fire system installed in your house. We've overregulated the system, hence why there's no more mom and pop institutions. All we're seeing is large scale childcare, which isn't bad, but unfortunately it's made it incredibly expensive. And now we have this sort of climate that's created where we have such a shortage because so many people have gotten out retired due to the regulations. So one thing the legislature can do is actually go into the Health and Human Services and work it and say, okay, how can we find a way to make sure that Minnesotans can run a business in childcare, and not just for childcare, for elderly, that takes care of people. I mean, you know, Minnesotans, it's Minnesota nice. We take care of people and we do right by that. And that regulation came out of some bad actors. And I think we need to revisit that and find a way to make sure that, once again, we're giving those Minnesotans everything they need, but allowing Minnesotans to run a business that's profitable and takes care of their neighbors.
Thank you. Julie, 30 seconds to respond.
I definitely think that we need to look at the regulations. There are many areas where we are overregulated, especially in the child care industry. But I think when it comes to like the elder care, we also need to look at safe staffing levels, and that is something that the legislature has taken a look at, and it continues to take a look at. That is one of the areas that is causing more burnout with employees and really working against our workforce. So we need to look at safe staffing levels.
Thank you. Next question, Spencer, we'll start with you. Many northern Minnesota communities face problems in providing residents with adequate housing. How could the legislature aid communities in creating more affordable housing?
So there's a couple ways that I think we need to invest in this. First off, Minnesota, again, is one of the most burdened states to build a home. On average, if you were to go build a home, 30 to 35% of the costs are going to be wrapped up in city and county fees, which right now puts Minnesota in a tier of its own when it goes to building a house. Moving on from there, cost of goods is incredibly high. So right there we have two major issues. Continuing forward, just the prices in workforce, we're inadequate in it. And that's because we've seen a shift away from our men and women who work the trades. We need to find ways to inspire a workforce to be able to build these homes. And then finally create the stable supply chain to do so. I'm very proud of a project I was working on in my district in Cohasset. to bring 150 jobs and produce over 400,000 square foot of OSB a year in the Cohasset community. We want to talk about building on building prices. It's unleashing our logging industry, which has seen just horrible decline over the years from not being supported in the Minnesota Legislature. So those are a couple ways that we can kind of give that hand up to Minnesotans and offer that workforce housing. We can talk about all the time about how we're going to expand the economy of the Iron Range in northeastern Minnesota. We're going to build more mines. We're going to unleash copper nickel. We're going to do all those things, but we have to have the workforce housing to do so. And by doing so, we need the legislature to act to bring down the costs of building those homes, as well as inspire a workforce that's going to come up and build them.
Thank you. Julie, same question. As you know, a lot of northern Minnesota communities face problems providing residents with adequate housing. How could the legislature aid communities in creating more affordable housing?
I think we need to incentivize public-private partnerships in the home building industries. Right now, we have a hard time attracting single-family builders. We don't have many in this region. We have people that are interested maybe in developing large apartment complexes, but that isn't necessarily what our communities are calling for and asking. So we need to incentivize that public-private partnership. One of the issues that we have right now is we have private individuals and companies buying up what would typically be single-family homes and flipping them to become rentals, taking multiple housing options off the market for people who are looking for homes. We definitely have a problem in rising prices with materials, the cost of the workforce, and a market will support what a market can basically afford. We should be using some of our surplus dollars to offer tax breaks for companies that will come in on building materials, our schools, that's another example we can talk about, but kind of bringing down the cost of the building materials and then also making sure that we have the workforce. Our public education system, our industrial ed tech programs that we are offering up here are really starting to build out their programs, building up that workforce, which is desperately needed in that chain.
Okay, thank you. Spencer, would you like to respond?
You know, I'll just reiterate, I think the one thing that was missing there is we need to find a way to remove the burdens faced on our builders. There's no reason that if we're going to build a market rate house for, let's say, $200,000, that $60,000 of that is going to be wrapped up in fees, whether it be put on by the state, the county, or the local municipality. Again, that's going to require partnerships on all levels, something that I've already started working on with Itasca County and the cities that I represent currently. But those are the things that need to happen right now. We need to remove those fees in a way that allows those homes to be built at a rate that's affordable.
Really, 30 seconds?
I think there's a lot of work in this area to be done, and I'm eager to get at it. Again, I think we need to look at the housing that we have available and keep it available for people that are trying to buy homes. And then again, I think really push that public-private partnership.
Thank you. For the next questions, I'll yield to my colleague, Mr. Potts.
Thank you, Pastor Dan. Julie, this one to you first. The winner of this election may give their party a majority in the House. What impact would a DFL or GOP majority have on your district?
Well, anytime any party is the majority party, their priorities are the priorities that are going to be pushed. So if there's a DFL majority, I think that we are going to see great work done for families, the working poor, public education. If there is, and these are hypothetical, but if there is a GOP majority, we are going to see money be the center point, money be the focal point. Businesses being placed first. And anytime, what I do want to say about anytime we have a majority party, especially if we do not have divided government, we are going to see the swings, the extremes of either side. I think that right now the GOP is putting the dollar oftentimes before people, and that's a kind of a tough pill to swallow when you knock doors and you hear people saying they have to choose right now between paying bills or buying medication.
Thank you. Spencer, same question. The winner of this election may give their party a majority in the House. What impact would a DFL or GOP majority have on your district?
So a GOP majority would deliver the lasting tax cuts that the Minnesotans that I've been talking to, the Rangers I've been talking to, desperately need. My opponent here just mentioned that people are having to decide between groceries and bills. Well, that's because they're being overtaxed and they need more money in their pocket right now. That is something the GOP majority would deliver on day one. It's already a priority of my GOP caucus that removing the tax on Social Security would be one of the first things passed if we had the majority down in St. Paul. I will also add the impact of a DFL majority. There's been 4 years without one piece of pro-mining legislation brought to the Minnesota House floor. If we want to continue that, we need to elect a DFL majority. I'm running because we cannot have a DFL majority. If we want to see our mines and our industries of northern Minnesota well represented and actually see legislation to work towards a permitting process that works for them and work towards state agencies that were working for them and the people of Minnesota's Iron Range, we desperately need a Minnesota GOP House majority.
Yeah, thank you. Julie, 30 seconds to add.
I absolutely disagree with the statement that the GOP would deliver the tax bill that we need. They had that opportunity last session and they walked away. There was no tax bill. And the tax bill before that, in 2021, my opponent voted against multiple items, multiple times. With that being said, as far as no mining bills, that's not true. I passed legislation with a DFL majority to protect the permits at the SR site. Those are intact, ready to go. And we had a written agreement on the tax bill.
Spencer, 30 seconds to add.
So I'll just add with the tax bill that fell apart. It was a deal made by 3 people in the Minnesota Legislature: the Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader of the Senate, and the Governor, which I first off don't believe the Governor has any right telling the Legislature how to act. That's why we're in separate arms of government, to say. Another reason the tax bill fell apart is it was a 4-4-4 plan. We needed to spend $4 billion to get $4 billion in cuts. And I don't listen to what 3 people tell me to do for my 45,000 constituents, and we actually weren't delivering the money needed for the people right now. Plain and simple.
Thank you. Spencer, you get this question first, and I apologize, the next 2 are fairly lengthy. What do you see as the most divisive issues facing the legislature in its next session? And given the close division between the parties, what would be the most effective approach to dealing with these issues? And you're free to choose whichever divisive issues you wish.
There definitely is a lot of divisive issues right now. I think one thing that's sort of happening in Minnesota politics is we have extremes on both sides of the aisle, and they're kind of yelling at the left and the right, hey, join us, and then we have a ton of Minnesotans that are left in the middle. One overarching tone that Republicans and Democrats agree on is creating tax cuts right now. That's when we need to bridge those gaps. I would go on a limb to say, there's plenty of other issues that are very divisive right now. For instance, if we were talking to a Metro legislature on this panel right now, mining would be one of those issues. We need to start educating and building relationships. Get back to what the legislature is about. It's not about being angry and yelling at each other. One of my best experiences in St. Paul these past 2 years was sitting down with someone on the other side of the aisle at 1 a.m. during one of our late nights and having a half-hour conversation and getting to know each other, realizing that we had the same college degree, realizing that we shared a lot of the same passions. And we left that day being friends. I've kept in contact with this person. And now she's sharing the stories of her district, I'm sharing the stories of mine, and I believe that culture, that's how we get things back on track. 30% of the legislature, regardless of elections this year, is going to be brand new. This hasn't happened in decades. We have a chance to be leaders in the Minnesota Capitol and get people back to what politics is about, building relationships and taking care of the people that matter, and that's every Minnesotan.
Thank you. Julie, the same question. What do you see as the most divisive issues facing the legislature in its next session? And given the close division between parties, what would be the most effective approach to dealing with these issues? And the choice of issues is yours.
I think that education is an area that we see very differently between the 2 parties, and yet I know that we care for all of our students. So that is one of the areas that we need to come together on and find out ways of what we can agree on. Can we agree that our public schools need more counselors, teachers, support staff, paras, school psychologists, and so on? And I think we can come to that. It comes down to the dollars too. It comes down to how much are we really going to invest in any kind of program. I think that's one of the areas. I think we still have tensions around racial inequities that have to be addressed. And I think the best thing that we can do is understand that our experiences maybe up here in the Northland are not the same experiences that people may have from the metro or other areas. We live in a pretty homogenized community up here, and it's changing, but it's not like we see in the cities. We need to find out ways to understand, but not, it doesn't have to be one way or the other. We need to work towards consensus and make the changes that we can. Governing is not about perfection, it is about improving a step at a time sometimes, but it's acknowledging maybe we're not doing things perfectly and then working towards improving it.
Thank you. Spencer, 30 seconds to add.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to education, I think one way that we could get all Minnesotans to agree to have more funding for education is to get copper nickel off the ground. We would double the school trust fund within a decade. That would be hundreds of thousands of dollars to all of our students. I think that's a great solution to that right away. When it comes down to how we need to govern, we need to remember that the word compromise is the reason that we all exist in elected government. It's what our forefathers intended. It's what the state of Minnesota was founded on. And if we can bring compromise back to the legislature and realize that working together in the middle is the way things need to get done, I think we actually can get back on track working for Minnesotans.
Thank you. Julie, 30 seconds.
I don't think that copper nickel getting off the ground is going to be enough funding initially through the school trust funds to take care of the problems that we see in schools. I fully support the copper nickel, however, it would be a great addition. And we need to just keep our eye on the prize when it comes to our students. Governing from the middle and working out is the way we need to get things done.
Thank you. And since you both mentioned copper nickel, the next question happens to be with mining. This is a long one, and I apologize for that. Our nation needs extensive mineral resources to implement the green economy and clean energy technology. The Duluth complex could provide these valuable minerals. If we're not mining, how will the nation meet these needs? And what should be the path forward in the legislature to encourage responsible mining? This one for you first, Julie.
Mining, I wish we had more than a minute and a half to talk about it. There's so much to say. You know, the region that we live in was built on a mining economy. We can't ignore our past, our present, or our future. We have to recognize the beautiful past we had. In the present, we are changing, we are evolving, and I have great hope about what's to come in the future. Copper nickel is part of that. The Duluth complex is only one of our complexes up here with the critical minerals we need. The palladium, the copper, the nickel, the cobalt. There's so many other things that we're using, not just in our cell phones that everybody carries around, but surgical procedures, devices, automobiles. This is being consumer driven. People are calling for it. And we are blessed to have an abundance of these minerals right here at our feet. This is the direction we need to move in. We need to do it safe. I have no doubt Minnesota will do it safer than anywhere else. We should not be importing these from foreign countries. We should be developing the resources that we have right here at home. And it's more than that. I mean, this goes into, again, everything is so interrelated. We'll talk about carbon sequestration and the option of cleaning our environment through this type of mining.
Thank you. Spencer, same question. Our nation needs extensive mineral resources to implement the green economy and clean energy technology. The Duluth complex could provide these valuable minerals. If we're not mining, how will the nation meet these needs? And what should be the path forward in the legislature to encourage responsible mining?
You know, and this is a front of mind issue for me because this is larger than just Minnesota and the Iron Range right now. Minnesota has a chance right now to become the global leader on how we're going to mine our future, essentially. I think the first thing we need to do is continue to educate and advocate on a level that we have never seen before. This summer, actually, I've been working with some of the copper nickel mines up here, and I actually just this morning had 50 members and candidates from around the state of Minnesota on a Zoom call with me, and I was educating them about copper nickel mining so they can talk to their constituents and start talking about what's really happening. We need to have those relationships with people. You know, second, this has been an issue I've been working on since day one when I was elected. I'm the only representative on the Iron Range delegation to take the House floor and actually fight and move legislation to try and make Minnesota a mining-friendly state, to move bills that we're going to give a hand up to Minnesotans on the Iron Range. Working in committee, you know, I said I serve on the Energy Committee. There was so much legislation passed that was going to incentivize wind and solar. And don't get me wrong, we need to have a diverse, all-of-the-above energy approach in the state of Minnesota. But how in good righteousness and how in good minds can we actually force slavery in China, in Africa, with no labor standards and no environmental standards so that we can build this energy future here in Minnesota while looking away. It's wrong and it's immoral. We need to start practicing American exceptionalism and actually sharing the story of what we have here, and that's how we're going to bring our best days to reality.
Thank you. Julie, 30 seconds.
Yeah, just one thing on the comments that Spencer made. He did take the floor. He did try to pass a resolution, not a bill, but a resolution declaring Minnesota as a mining-friendly state, but it was offered in the wrong committee. It was offered to the climate and energy bill, not to the environment bill, where it was going to be germane. So nobody took a vote to vote that down. And yeah, we just need to offer our amendments and speak to our issues in the right area, the right committees.
Thank you. Spencer, 30 seconds.
So what I'll just say is, Representative Sands said I didn't say how you voted. I just said that you never stood up and supported mining once on the House floor. And I'm very disappointed in that to this day. Second, I did try to offer it in all my committees. I had one committee chair who was in the DFL majority say, yes, Representative Igo, you have 11 seconds to present your amendment. That is what is happening to the people of the Iron Range with the DFL majority, and that is why we need to stand up and make our voice heard and elect a GOP House majority. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rebuttal?
Pastor Dan.
You each get 30 seconds. But again, you are free to use your time however you want in answering these questions. So, let's see. That means Spencer gets the first question here. Many Minnesotans feel unsafe in their communities. What can be done to better support community policing and public safety?
You know, this is a great question. I never thought in a million years when you'd have to run for elected office, you'd have to put pro-law enforcement on your literature. Especially up here on the range in our communities, that is something that we hold very close and dear to our hearts. I'm very humbled and privileged to be endorsed by the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association, the largest law enforcement agency in the state. In talking to a lot of officers, I've got a lot of close family friends who are in the brown and blue. I was actually just at a Vikings game a few weeks ago and was talking to a Minneapolis PD officer. And I literally asked him, how can we support our cops? What is happening with community policing? And the overarching tone is we need our elected leaders to support them, whether it be in the state legislature or whether it be just on a city council. You know, we're seeing across Minnesota that school districts are actually pushing out school resources officers, which is a huge disservice to all of our students. If, having an officer in Hibbing High School or Grand Rapids High School or in Greenway, that's where you build some of those great relationships with law enforcement, community policing. Those are the things we need to inspire and advocate for, not turn against, not support. We're seeing a huge burnout. I was just talking to the law enforcement program over here at Hibbing Community College. Their enrollment is declining. We are going to struggle to have more officers unless we actually start supporting their field and realize that they're the men and women who are keeping us safe. So we need to have that culture change. We need to actually get back to supporting our police, and that's how we're going to keep our communities safe and bring about an environment that's keeping us all safe. And that is a key role of government.
Thank you, Spencer. Julie, many Minnesotans feel unsafe in their communities. What can be done to better support community policing and public safety?
So I think that many people not feeling safe in their communities is not necessarily the same across the state. There are some communities that feel this concern greater than others. One of the things I can say, and I think we agree on this, is yes, we do have to support our police officers. One of the ways that we can do that is to be in frequent contact, to find out what it is that they need, which is something that I have done. Anytime a bill has come up, I have called my local sheriff's department, my police departments, to ask them, how will this impact you? Is this good? Is this bad? One of the things that we have to understand is the severity of their profession. And it's a critical profession. We can support them in their pensions. We can support them by going into the profession. In our higher education bill, we offered incentives to get people to go into that area. We need to listen to them. We need to listen to what they need. We need to understand the issues that they face. Up here, we have a serious issue right now with chemical dependency. And one of the things I did was offer a bill around fentanyl that would crack down on some of those criminals, and we could get some of those, offenders maybe off the street a little bit sooner and make it easier for our peace officers. As a first responder, I work hand in hand with our police officers and our sheriff's department. We need to do anything we can do to support them.
Spencer, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'll just mention, I've been working on a few bills, one that almost made it across the finish line before a session collapsed. Working with 911 dispatchers, it was unique to me. I didn't know if you're in a different county in the state, you call 911, it's not the same as it is in Itasca County and St. Louis County. It's a bill I've been working on for 2 years to keep people safe. Another one was working on training incentives with the MMPOA to find ways to get officers educated. And finally, I think the biggest thing that I've been hearing, we need to change that culture. We can't be introducing bills to defund the police, because talking to all of our police chiefs, they're terrified of it.
Okay, thank you. Julie, 30 seconds.
Yeah, the defund the police is really just a talking point. It came out of a situation that we saw following the pandemic. And what we need to realize right there is that when we look at Minneapolis, and that's where this is coming from, this is a local issue. This is not a statewide issue. So when we're looking at policy, we need to make good policy statewide and understand the difference between local issues and state policy.
Okay, thank you. Julie, this question starts with you. Rural America, Minnesota included, continues to face increased illegal drug use. Do you have any suggestions on how to deal with this challenge?
Yeah, we need to listen to our police department and take their lead on this. One of the things that I've been working on and was brought to my attention even a couple years back is fentanyl. That's huge up here right now. And it's so lethal and costing the lives of so many people. And it's the type of drug that you don't get a do-over. It can be a one-time exposure and you're in trouble. We need to have far more available to our communities in terms of addiction treatment, whether it's alcohol or chemical dependency. We need to encourage them to get away from what they're doing, give them the support that they need. And that's hard because that's another workforce shortage area that we're dealing with. And then we need to really crack down on things that are impacting people the most, fentanyl being one of them right now.
Thank you. Spencer, same question. Rural communities, including in Minnesota, continue to face increased illegal drug use. Do you have any suggestions on how to deal with that challenge?
And this is a conversation I have a lot with my friends in law enforcement. The biggest thing that they talk about to me is, one, having those places and centers for those in our community who've been affected. You're not going to see any disagreement there on either side of the aisle from either of us. I agree with that. We need to find ways to take care of people when they're at their lowest. But on the flip side of the coin, we actually need to start actually carrying down the law on those dealers. You talk to local law enforcement up here, a lot of the people that are getting booked for distributing these drugs are repeat offenders, and they're getting let back out onto the street. We actually need to have severe criminal penalties for those people that are bringing fentanyl and other horrible drugs into our communities. Because unfortunately, these repeat offenders are hitting the streets again, they're getting more product, they're moving it, and they're killing more of our children, more of our youth, and poisoning our communities. If we want to get rid of this drug problem on the range in northeastern Minnesota and greater America, we need to start getting tough on crime and tough on the people that are bringing it into our communities. Not to mention how much fentanyl is coming across our Mexican border. I mean, these are things that are very serious and have lasting effects to communities, so it starts with being tough on crime.
Julie, 30 seconds to respond.
I agree.
Spencer, 30 seconds to respond to the agreement.
There we go.
All right, we're saving time. Very good. Let's see, Spencer, the question starts with you. Mining, logging, tourism, and real estate retail business are northeastern Minnesota's economic lifeblood. What can the legislatures do to promote and support these? Mining, logging, tourism, retail.
Yeah, it's finding a way to make this state business friendly again. Again, number 48 out of 50 in the country we're actually doing business in. That's just shackling our small businesses, it's shackling our industries on how they're actually able to provide for our communities. Everything you just listed that's a part of the range in northeastern Minnesota are value-added companies that put our people to work, pay for buildings like we're sitting in today, help fund our education. They're all critical infrastructure, really. But if we are going to create a government that is overbearing and overregulated, these companies are going to struggle. And if they struggle, they're going to have to make that hard decision whether or not they can continue to operate. And we're seeing it. I mean, again, the Huber Wood project that I was, so thankful to work with Senator Bach on to bring to Cohasset. We are seeing an overregulated process getting caught up in not only state, but federal courts and litigation. I'm worried, that one day one of these companies is going to look at it and say, why do we even try to do business in Minnesota? And frankly, it only has to happen one or twice before businesses are going to look elsewhere. And we have to remember that our communities are tied to our business community, right? They're job creators. Those are the people that make sure we're all fed, take care of us. So we need to find a way to support business and not overregulate it. And I think that is the first step to making the state better for all of us.
Thanks, Spencer. Julie, same question to you. Mining, logging, tourism, retail business are northeastern Minnesota's economic lifeblood. What can legislators do to promote and support these?
So we need to educate around the importance of all of these areas and the impact that they have across the state. When we talk about education, we've already kind of kicked around the school trust fund. I don't think many people understand statewide, mining goes to every single, dollars from mining go to every single student across the state of Minnesota. Logging is becoming one of our, the logging and timber industry is a huge part, and it's going to be part of, it's a huge part of the new 7A district. It's very important to look at that. The work I've been doing right now with NRRI is kind of taking care of the issues and concerns around the mining industry and the timber industry. When we're talking about carbon sequestration and the benefits to our soil, different things like that, it's really exciting to see the changes that are coming and that we can be excited about a future economy. We're right on the precipice of this. This is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. We can promote that. Tourism, we live in God's country. This is a wonderful area. When I think of the Redhead Bike Trails and the Minnesota Discovery Center, what we see, we can talk about mining as our past, but we don't leave it in the past. When we are done mining, we are using it for recreation and tourism, and it's a beautiful cycle that we are in.
Thank you. Spencer, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'll just add, it was brought up at the forum last week, and I think something we really need to do as a region as a whole is partner in advocacy. It shouldn't just be, Visit St. Louis County. It shouldn't just be Iron Range Tourism. It should be all of us working together. And I was thinking the IRRR could be a great agency to help work on that, to help fund that. I mean, some states that have regions similar to ours will actually fund like a bus that tours the state and educates children, goes to communities and says, come up here and be a part of it. And that is something we can do up here.
Good, thank you, Spencer. Julie?
Word of mouth, it's the best promoter.
Thank you. And I, again, yield to Steve.
Julie, this one to you first. How can the legislature best work to pass a bonding bill?
That's a great question. We have to work together. We cannot have one party or the other party walk away. We need to do less well. We need to work together. We need to acknowledge that the projects across the state of Minnesota are everybody's projects. Every community values the projects that are on a bonding bill. We need to, it honestly doesn't come down to a bonding bill. It comes down to working together as government. If we can work together in government, we can pass a bonding bill, we can pass a tax bill, we can pass an education bill. So bonding specifically, it comes down to just working together, acknowledging everybody's project is important, it matters, and honestly, if we acknowledge that a bonding bill creates jobs, which it does, that would be a huge incentive for all of us.
Yeah, thank you. Spencer, same question. How can the legislature best work to pass a bonding bill?
I think the first thing we do, and I've already talked about it a little, is we need to get rid of this master negotiating triumvirate process that occurs between the House, the Senate, and the governor. Because unfortunately what's happening is the negotiations leave the House and Senate floors and they go into a closed room in the governor's mansion or in the state capitol. And then everyone's left wondering, what are we gonna do? Well, we were elected to do something. We were elected to pass these bills. And when it comes down to a bonding bill, I agree 100%, a bonding bill is a jobs bill, especially for our region. The bonding process exists to be able to help take care of communities that don't have as much economic impact, and that can use that to help fund our schools and fund our communities to keep them safe and strong. So I think the best way to get these passed is get rid of this bargaining power, put the power back in the hands of the legislators, so that when we're talking about a bonding bill, it's me and 7 colleagues going to talk to a bonding chair and say, hey, this is a really big thing for our region, can you help us fund it? Rather than twiddling our thumbs and waiting to find out whether or not the majority leader and the House Speaker and the governor told us it's okay or not. That's not how the legislature is supposed to work. And that is something that we can change again with this culture that's going to be changing with the new legislature that's going to come in 23. 30% is going to be brand new. The time for action is now, and Minnesotans desperately need it.
Thank you. Julie, 30 seconds.
I agree with much of what he said. I would like to only add to that, we need to get back to understanding the purpose of the biennium. The first year is our budget year. The second year is more a policy, and it's our bonding year. And we have to take that responsibility as legislators seriously, and that's from the day-to-day legislator all the way up to the top. And I believe that we can do that, but we can't have anybody walk away at the end. And the surplus, that's what drove people. It was going to be a winner takes all.
Spencer, 30 seconds.
And I'll just respond to that. I agree. We have to understand how the biennium works. That's why trying to spend billions of dollars in a policy year is why it fell apart. And we were being told by 3 people. It wasn't legislators in a room actually negotiating and deciding whether or not we were going to spend money. We were being told to spend money. So if we are going to follow how the biennium is supposed to work, we need to follow that and not be letting one leader of a caucus decide whether or not we're spending or doing this.
Spencer, this question to you first, and again, I apologize, we're combining 2 questions here in the interest of time. What can the legislature do to ensure Hibbing Taconites access to new ore supplies, and what should the state of Minnesota do with the mineral leases on the SR property?
So when it comes down to the mineral leases, obviously there's a big release this week that the leases have been pulled from Minnesota Metallics. The first step now is we need these state agencies to be on their A game. And I will be monitoring that closely as long as I'm in elected office to make sure that these leases and this project does not end up in a bottom dustro like it sometimes can. That is priority number 1. Number 2, when it comes to HIBTAC and how we can extend the life, as a legislature, your job is to work with communities, create partnerships. One way I think that's kind of staring us in the face that we can talk to is Cliffs and U.S. Steel should start talking about the Kearney Campbell deposit and what that could mean for HIBTAC to give them some life for a while we figure out what's going to happen with the leases that were just pulled from Minnesota Metallics. Again, these are all partnerships and relationships that we need to work on together to ensure the life and strength of our communities. And that's something that I'm very confident that we can accomplish together.
Okay, thank you. Julie, same question. What can the legislature do to ensure Hibbing Taconites access to new ore supplies? And what should the state of Minnesota do with its mineral leases on the SR property?
I love that question. Thank you. This is something that took me a long time to really decide where I stood on this issue. I agree that the state agencies need to be on their A game, and we as a legislator can be working with agencies to do that. The conversation between Kearney Campbell has been going on for many, many, many years, and it's not going to happen. There isn't an interest in both parties, by both parties, to make that happen. I believe, and it is through years of watching this and studying it, I believe the mineral leases should go to Cliffs. Not only would it extend the mine life at Hibbing Tac, but it would be great mining across the region. Cliffs has been a demonstrated leader in the industry. Lorenzo Gonzalez has been a man of his word. What he says he will do, he has done. And I know that I'm being loud and proud about Cliffs right now, and this is not a public service announcement for them, but we really do need to understand the quality of work that has been done and the need and the financial wherewithal that they have and the experience. I believe it is the best fit. There hasn't been another person to come and say loudly, I want these leases, we want these leases, we have the money and the experience. I think that's the answer.
Spencer, 30 seconds.
Yep, I think it's really hard to pick a winner and loser with our mining companies on the range. That's not how a capitalist free economy works. We're going to see what's going to happen here. I would be very confident to see that U.S. Steel and Cliffs are going to be both approaching these leases in the coming months. Potentially there could be a third company out there. We don't know, but to pick a winner and loser in this situation as the legislature, I think is just inappropriate.
Julie?
I disagree. I think experience speaks, and having watched companies, we've given everybody an opportunity, and only one has come forth saying they want it, they've demonstrated the experience, they have the financial wherewithal, so I don't think it's out of line.
Thank you. And my boss tells me this is the last question, correct? Julie, you get this one first, and it's a perfect question to end on. You are both currently in the legislature. What, in your experience and background, are you most proud of that we should consider when voting in November? Julie?
So what am I most proud of in my background? I'm an old woman. This is a lot of experience here. I think what I'm most proud of is what I bring to the role. I bring life experience as a parent, as a grandparent, as a teacher, as a volunteer firefighter, as somebody who's been invested in the community. I know that every piece of legislation, and there's been several that I have been able to bring forth and pass, has all been community-centered to improve our communities, whether it's been in the bonding bills, whether it's been through broadband, historic investments in broadband, through my 911 bill for rural communities, for CPR, which passed, for our veterans, the post 9/11 Gold Star and Gold Star bonus pay was my bill. Those are all things to be proud of. I think just the experience of teaching has served me well, learning from so many diverse people, so many families, what their needs are, listening to all of those things, and then just general life experience and 6 years of building relationships across the aisle in the Senate, with the governor's office. All of those will serve well moving into the future.
Thank you. Spencer, same question. You are both currently in the legislature. What in your experience and background are you most proud of that we should consider when voting in November?
Well, to start, I always hesitate around the word pride because I think it's a very dangerous word, frankly. So let's call it more, what am I more humble for? I'm more humble for being raised here in Itasca County, for knocking hundreds and thousands of doors, building relationships across the range. My passion really in this life is to leave this place better than I found it. That's what I think my calling has always been. Again, I went to school to serve communities. I worked for Congressman Pete Stauber to help build communities on the Iron Range. And when I was called to run for office by my friends, family, and neighbors, that's what I'm trying to do right by. I take a lot of humility in the fact that when I go and knock a door, I leave my personal cell phone on every piece of literature, on my Facebook page, and I'm constantly on the phone because I'm talking to everybody. I don't look at this role as being a state representative as I need to be the leader for our people. It's the people all have the vision that they want to see implemented. I am just the conduit, right? When you are elected to the legislature, you are given, in my mind, two things. You're given a podium and you're given a pedestal. Now, and that podium is so you have the chance to speak. You represent 45,000 people. And people may or may not listen to you, but the most important thing is you're given a podium. And the podium isn't for yourself, it's for your community. And I love showcasing who we are up here and telling the story of us. And that is what I'm really passionate on and have a lot of humility for carrying down in St. Paul. And that's what I hope people remember when Election Day comes.
Thank you. Julie, additions?
I think that it's a wonderful thing. We're still on the same question, yes.
Yes.
Rebuttal to this. Okay, I agree. Those are all great things, but I think that there's more than just getting on the floor and giving a good speech. You have to deliver. You have to vote yes for the things you say you support. And that I have a record of doing.
Thank you. Spencer?
Absolutely. That's why I've taken a lot of good votes and actually moved a lot of good legislation for our area. And I've built relationships, not only in my own caucus, but the other side of the aisle, and founded friendships across the state that are going to prove vital in the next legislative session to deliver for our communities. Again, it's like the old Wellstone line. We all do better when we all do better.
Thank you both very much for being with us this evening. We will see both of you again the first Tuesday in November. And, closing statements, yes. Who did we start with, Pastor Dan?
Julie, start with you.
Spencer, you get first choice for opening.
Awesome.
Closing.
Well, I just want to, thank the Hibbing Chamber as well as Hibbing Public Access TV for this opportunity to really share both sides of who we are as candidates. This is a monumental election. That is one thing I'm hearing at the doors. And for all those watching at home and all those listening, I want to thank you for the time you've given. But I also want to thank you for all the time that you're putting into your families and our communities up here. Now more than ever, we need to be working together to do exactly what I think this campaign's been built on, that's to bring our best days to reality. We can deliver a hand up to not only the Minnesotans on the Iron Range in northeastern Minnesota, but to all of us. And together, there's no telling where we can go. The Iron Range built the nation and won world wars, and we're going to build the world of tomorrow. We're going to educate the next generation of superstars that are going to change this state and change this world. And I confidently believe that. I'm running for this office to deliver that because I want that for our region. I just want that because it's what gives me this opportunity to even be in front of you today, is being a part of this community, being raised here and feeling the energy it's always had. You know, we have a rich tradition of politicians who have always remembered who we are up here. And I want to echo that same message and passion for the region that they've always carried. I mean, it echoes even in these halls in this room that we're in. There's a lot of rich history there. And I'm humbly asking for your vote of support to continue to be the voice for our home. So thank you again for having me, and thank you for watching.
Thank you, Spencer. Julie, your close.
In closing, I just want to say it has been such a privilege to have served this region for the past 6 years, getting to know the people, getting to know the issues at a far deeper level, and then taking those comments and those concerns down to St. Paul and really pushing for change and making change, delivering on change. I'm very, very proud of the work that I have done. Much of the legislation I've already mentioned, forming those relationships with people across the aisle in all bodies of government. They've all said, you're common sense. You are a straight shooter. These are words that people have used to describe me down there. I want people to know about me. I don't play political games. I am a straight shooter. I really hate sound bites and rhetoric. I'm not about divisionary politics. Politics is for people. It is to get work done. And when we focus on sound bites rather than truth or compromise, we are losing the ground that we desperately cannot afford to lose. I think common sense matters. And I think I've been a voice of common sense down in St. Paul, and I plan to do that again. I have no problem standing up to my own party at all when it does not represent the values of the Iron Range or my community or the families that live here. And as I said earlier, governing is a process. It is not about perfection. So when you say you support something, you need to support provisions in there. I don't want to throw shade, that is not the intention, but in many of the bills that we had, my opponent said he supported Huber, but voted against $30 million in a tax bill for it. He said he supported Huber, but voted against provisions through the MPCA to get them up and off the ground. So there are things that happen that if you say you support, you have to do it. Sometimes you hold your nose in order to get things done, but when you have things that deliver for your communities, you need to get the work done. That's our job. The people here are counting on whoever is elected to get that work done. They're not down in St. Paul. So we need somebody who's going to do that. I thank the communities for the opportunity to serve. I hope that you will put your trust in me again as we move forward. Thank you to the Chamber for the opportunity to have this forum, to debate some of these issues. And thank you again to HPAT. I'm Julie Sandstead, and I would appreciate your support in November.
Now we can conclude. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.